With wireframe designs, you've got a lot of tools to manipulate the density, the wireframe itself. You've got all these properties, but in order to utilize all those tools, you actually have to select the elements that you want to affect. So let's look at your selection tools. First off, in the view window, I can just click on something to select it. And when I do, you'll see that it's highlighted in the project view. And it also shows all the wireframe elements. It'll show my stitch direction. It will show my entry point, my exit point, and the last stitch of the previous element, which is what that little propeller is. If I want to add to this selection in the view window, I can hold Control and I can click on another element, and that will select that element too. And as I select these elements, I'm going to hold Control and do it again. You'll notice those selections get kind of dotted bounding boxes around them, and they just get a little bolder. They just show a little more, and the unselected elements just kind of fall back a little bit so that you don't see them as much. To deselect, I can click in a blank area of the screen. If I didn't have that, I could right-click, go to select, and say deselect all. And I've set that up for an accelerator for me for the tab key. So if I'm zoomed way in, I can get out of it that way. It's also available under Edit and Deselect All. I can also click and drag a box in the view window, and anything that is completely contained within that box, when I let go, will be selected. Now in the project view, I can do similar things. I can click on one thing. Now if I hold Shift and click on another, I'll get everything in between. So I'll get consecutive elements. If I want non-consecutive elements, I can hold Control. So I click on one, hold Control, click on another, and I'll get non-consecutive elements. So click on one, hold Shift, click on another, I'll get consecutive elements. If I hold Control, I can select, or in this case, deselect non-consecutive elements. So I'm going to let go of Control now. Another nifty tool I like about the project view, I can select something. So in this case, I have a column 1. I can right-click on it and go to Select, and then I can select same type. And now I have all of the column 1s selected within a design. Also in that selection option is Select All or Select Entire Design. Now if there's just one design in your project, these are going to act very similarly. But if there's multiple designs within a project, this will select the design that you're in. This will select the entire project, including any and all designs that are in there. When you're selecting in the view window, it's a little bit like your cursor is your finger, and whatever stitches you touch, that's what you can select. And it's a little hard to kind of get down through those stitches. There's a couple of different ways to do that and a couple of tools to help you out. So if I were to click right here, I'm selecting that detail part of the wing. And if I wanted the piece that was under it, I could use these tools. So I could select previous element, and that would kind of drill down. Okay, that was what was under a little bit farther, and then a little bit farther than that, and a little bit farther than that, and then more detail. And now I get down to the fill. And so wherever you click, it will kind of drill down through right around where you clicked. And then once you reach bottom, you can't go any farther. And then you can come back up through the layers the same way with next element. So this is select previous element and select next element. And that will deal very much with where you clicked. So if I click somewhere where there's a lot, you'll get more kind of overlapping pieces. You can drill down through those. If you select where there's very little underneath of it, well, no matter how many times I click, there's nothing underneath of it to get to. Other things that you can do to kind of help yourself out. You can lock elements. So if I lock the black color in my project view, I can't select it. I'll select through it. So now I'm dealing with the underneath layers. Even though I'm clicking where there's black, I'm not selecting the black, I'm selecting whatever's underneath of it. So that is a way to get through it. You could also hide it, but if you want to select it but still see the layers above it, locking it is an option for that. Some of those selection techniques may be review. We've talked about them in other videos, but now we're getting into some other selection tools. For example, the custom point selection tool. It's this guy here. Now, this is a little dotted star, and I can click and drag in the view window around elements that I want to select. And then when I hit enter, anything completely contained within whatever I drew will be selected. Now, it says custom point selection tool. Obviously, just now, I wasn't dealing with points. I'm dealing with entire elements. But it can work with points. So if I have an element selected and I'm going to zoom in, I can use the custom point selection tool to select certain wireframe points. I can do the same thing with stitches if I'm dealing with expanded stitch editing. You can also use selection tools to select a hole in a fill and delete it. So here we have a design, and this part of the top of the cupcake has a hole underneath the shine. So if I hide that shine, you can see there's a hole there. And that means that the fill is going to have to fill and come back and meet itself. And I'm not really saving that many stitches, and I'm causing a little bit of fabric distortion. So what I may choose to do is, with the element selected, if I go inside of a hole and click, that resize edit box here, let me take this out of 3D so it's a little easier to see. That resize edit box goes down to just that hole. Well, if I press delete on my keyboard, that hole will go away, that will completely fill in, and now the top of my cupcake is completely solid. So if I didn't want to sew the shine, I don't have to. It's solid, it's filled in. So if you're deleting elements and then you have holes underneath, a lot of times you can delete the holes by selecting that fill, and then once it's selected, click on the center of the hole and the resize edit box will go down to the center of that hole, and then you can press delete on your keyboard and make it go away. So we've been dealing with wireframe elements. Let's deal with wireframe points now. So if I select an element, I see all those wireframe points around it. Let me zoom in. And if I wanted to edit those wireframe points, I would have to click on them. And I can click on them one at a time, and I could move them. If I wanted multiples, I could hold Control and click on them in the view window. And now if I move them, I'm going to get them all. Let me hit undo real quick. Move them back. I could also use that custom point selection tool to draw around the ones that I want. So now I only grabbed those two. I grabbed every other one. I can do that. Let me hit undo. If I look at them in the project view, now to do this, I have to have the toggle point list on so that I can see them. I can click individual points, and as I do, you can see that they're highlighted. That's the one that I have selected. If I click it over here, you can see that it highlights here. You can do similar things. If I click on one, I can hold Shift and I can get consecutive ones. If I click on one and hold Control, I can select non-consecutive ones. So you have a lot of options for selecting those points. Other things that you can do, if you hold Shift and click and drag a box, any wireframe point within the box will be selected. So if I wanted the bottom edge here, I could hold Shift, click and drag a box, and I will get those wireframe points. And all of the above works the same in expanded editing. So this is a mode I don't go into very often, but I have all my expanded points here. If I hold Shift and drag a box, I will select all the expanded points within that box if I'm in expanded editing mode. And I could do the same thing with custom selection. I could draw around just the ones that I want. And now I have just those. And I can move just those points. Now, I'm moving expanded points, so I'm moving just the individual needle penetrations. This is not something I do overly often, but occasionally I will need to do it. And this makes that a lot easier. Selection tools make it a lot easier to deal with wireframe elements as well as wireframe points, and even if you really want to get down into it, expanded points. So take advantage of all the selection tools available to you.